Thanks for being here. Subscribe to Cheating Stories Best, so you don't miss new stories.
Is going alone on vacation enough proof that your significant other doesn't love you? Today's first installment of a similar story. Enjoy the show! I sat there watching the deer, and an unbearable sadness rose within me. It was all over. I had tried for 10 years, but in the end, it didn't make any difference. She would never be a full partner in any relationship she had, and I was tired of trying. Her words about what a loser I was, how little respect she had for me, and that she might cheat on me while she was on the holiday of a lifetime were the last straw. Sighing, I stood up. She started this expecting me to just give in. I was almost sure that she wouldn't believe what was about to happen. I didn't have any money, she took care of that. But I had a nice retirement account, and I knew I'd start withdrawing money from it first thing in the morning. I hoped there would be enough for a good lawyer. I called from California later that night and spoke to the girls, hanging up as soon as she picked up the phone. It took some willpower not to answer, but all I had to do was remember her speech when she announced her vacation. The next day, I went to work, contacted a corporation, and began the process. The good news was that I could get $30,000 in a few days. The bad news was that this was all I would get. It was a lot of money for me, but it wasn't enough for even one day with the lawyers her company was working with. I was sure that she would use all their resources against me. We would have to deal with this. The next night, her mother called and started screaming as soon as I answered. I didn't say a word, I just hung up. She called back 3 more times, becoming more and more insulting. I hung up each time, deciding to record all calls from that moment on. 30 minutes later, she called again. You selfish idiot. Thanks to you, she can't enjoy the trip because she's worried. You have to come to your senses until she meets a real man. You mean that big lawyer? Tell her to try it. I do not care anymore. I'll say he's 4 times the man you'll ever be, and I'm not even talking about your pathetic goodness in your pants. You old. Isn't there a married lawyer out there somewhere waiting for his? I wouldn't want you to fall behind schedule. So many men, so little time. How do you cope? Her sharp intake of breath let me know I was on target, and I hung up before she could recover. 2 more days passed, and Tiffany called. After she said she wouldn't let me talk to the kids, I hung up and didn't answer the next 10 calls in quick succession. Disappointed, I walked out and found myself in a bar called O'Brien's, a place where everyone was welcome. You could be faced with a truck driver or a construction worker on one side and a highly paid lawyer or police officer on the other. The retired boxer himself was in charge of all this. He could still intervene if someone lost their temper and carried a bat with him if necessary. People weren't overly polite, but the regulars knew better than to break the rules. I found myself at a table with an old friend who happened to be there. The jukebox played mostly Cranberries songs. It was a little loud, so we were literally shouting at each other. I told him about my plans for the future and asked if he knew any good divorce lawyers. The song had just ended, and I was still talking loudly. I can't afford much, and I know she'll have Martin, Devin, Bailey, and Bartley. They are associated with her company, and she knows most of them personally. Hell, they'll probably do it for free. I'm done, but that won't stop me. Several businessmen in expensive suits were sitting next to us, and although I didn't notice it, one of them suddenly raised his head. After a few seconds, I felt a slight pat on the shoulder. Sorry, but I accidentally overheard part of your conversation. Can I give you a few minutes? It could be beneficial for both of us. I sighed. Why? Are you a divorce lawyer? He smiled and handed me a business card. My eyes widened. It was Lou Walters. I had read about him in the newspapers. He was the lawyer that millionaires wanted when it came time to end their marriages. He could break the prenuptial agreement for one client and achieve weak compliance with it for another. I gave him the business card back. I really appreciate the offer, Mr. Walters, but there's no way I can afford your services. He smiled. Oh, my rates can be very flexible for the right things. Please give me a few minutes. After you listen to me, if you want to leave, I will accept your decision. I had nothing to lose, so I followed him to an empty table. Before we begin, let me tell you a story. Once upon a time, there was a young idealistic lawyer fresh out of school trying to make a name for himself. He had some bad luck early in his career, running into a very prestigious, very connected law firm. They destroyed him, although his client was right, using vile and illegal methods. A year later, they did it again. It took him years to rebuild his career, and the law firm took every opportunity to undermine him when he started winning cases. He had wanted a rematch for years, and you just gave him that opportunity. Money is not as important as revenge. Having said that, if there's money, I expect to receive my fee. If not, I will do it for free and cover all costs. Interested? We talked for about 30 minutes before a man approached our table. I don't want to interrupt, but we need to go, Lou. I drank too much. I need you to give me a ride. It was strange to look into the eyes of a man whom I had seen in the newspapers dozens of times. It's not often you meet the angel of death and live to tell the tale. He smiled and shook my hand. Bill Mond. It's nice to meet someone who might interest Lou. It's been a long time. He fell silent in embarrassment. Bruce Davis, sir. It's an honor to meet you. We exchanged pleasantries while Lou paid our bill. He returned with a question in his eyes. You have my business card. Call me tomorrow if you're interested. I looked at his business card after he left. Damn, of course I was interested. Tiffany called the next day, apologizing for the silence and promising that I could talk to the kids if I just talked to her for a few minutes. I learned a little more than I wanted about their activities with good Uncle Stephen from the kids before she got back on the line. Please, Bruce, you're blowing a little quarrel into World War III. I'm sorry that I hurt your feelings. Individual vacations can be a good thing. They allow spouses to love each other more when they meet again. I couldn't resist. Of course, Tiff, if they are planned in advance. It's a completely different matter when your wife goes away for a month with a man who wants to get her into bed without any warning, hoping that it will teach me a lesson. Honestly, Tiff, this may not be the lesson you wanted, but it opened my eyes. You will never be a full-fledged wife and equal partner. You will always keep a part of yourself to the side, fully confident that sooner or later I will let you down. We are almost at the end of this path. I hope you enjoy your destination. Bruce, please, you're scaring me. What can I do to improve the situation so that you understand that I'm not going to cheat on you and that I still love you? Get on the plane and go home. There was a long silence. I can't do this, Bruce. The kids are having a great time. I chuckled. So, you will do everything to improve the situation if it does not interfere with your vacation? Why did I never notice what a spoiled you are? Wait, I think I always knew. I just thought that if I loved you enough, you would change. How did this work for me? Enjoy your holiday, Tiff. Have my kids call me if it doesn't interfere with their time with Uncle Stephen. Oh, and one more thing. Tell your mother she did a great job messing with your brain. And tell her, Tiff, whether we stay together or not, she must never speak to me again while she lives and live, and that is non-negotiable. I hung up before she could answer and listened to the phone ring again for hours. I met with Lou the next day and then again the following Monday. He got straight to the point. Do you have any idea how much your wife is worth? Not exactly, but I suspect quite a lot. She is worth $4,400,000 in cash and assets. Surprised, I was too. She costs that much and makes you pay the mortgage and other bills? It seems a little skewed. I told him in detail how Tiffany thought. He couldn't hide the surprise on his face. How did you stand it? My ex was a cheating, but she never disrespected me like that. If she had done that, the marriage would have ended much faster. I shrugged. I loved her and thought I could change her. So do you want me to continue? I simply nodded. How bad do you want to do this? I never thought about it and shrugged. I just want this to be over. I would like reasonable access to my children, but that's it. His look spoke volumes. If that's all you want, you can leave right away. I can't do anything for you. Her lawyers will eat you alive and laugh while they do it. She clearly hurt you badly. She goes on a month-long vacation with the kids without you, in the company of people who don't care about the continuation of your marriage, and you just accept it meekly. She was right, you really need to be brave. What do you suggest? Hurt her back. Give her something to think about. Make her focus on something other than herself. For the first time, you've been submissive for so long that the idea that you can do anything is completely foreign to her. If you want to continue with a divorce, let her know. Here's what I'll do. I'll send her the preliminary documents in 2 days, right in the middle of her fun vacation. It doesn't really mean anything, but it will get her attention. See how she reacts. If she ignores it, then we can start dancing. I'll videotape everything and keep an eye on her to see what she's really doing while she's not with you. I can't afford. He waved his hand. I will take care of it, and if it comes down to it and you really break up, you can afford it. There is no prenup, so you get half her fortune. Plus, your incomes are so different that I'm sure there will be a couple of years of alimony. I'm thinking about a really nice apartment here. If I really wanted to hurt her, it would work. The thought of having to give away some of her money will drive her crazy. So I told Lou to continue thinking. I could always call it off when she came to her senses. Later, I watched it on video. A man stood in the lobby of her hotel, holding a sign with her name on it. She came down with the children, her mother, the other assembled vacationers, and Mr. Big himself. Seeing the man, she smiled and approached him. "I'm Tiffany Davis." He looked at the photo on his phone. "Ma'am, I need to hand you these documents, and you need to sign them. Can I see your ID, please?" She rummaged through her purse and handed him her driver's license. He thanked her, took a photo, and handed her a thick envelope. "Mrs. Davis, you have been notified. Have a good day." He started to walk away but stopped, turning to her again. "They gave me $100 extra to send a personal message. Bruce said to tell you, lesson learned." Tiffany looked puzzled for a moment, opened the bag, screamed, and dropped it on the floor. Stephen Middleton picked up a few pages, read them, and grinned. Her mother smiled openly behind her. She immediately dialed my number. "Thanks, you stupid. Now she can find a real man. Don't ever call me again." I looked at her surprised face. She dialed the number 8 times before giving up. Tiffany took her phone, and her mother tried to take it from her, but she resisted. I answered the first call. "Bruce, what are you doing? You know that I love you with all my heart." I actually laughed, surprising her. "Yes, you gave me everything, didn't you? Your love, your respect, your willingness to be an equal partner in our marriage. I truly believe that you love me as long as I know my place, behind the children, your mother, your work, and your money. I was never first in your heart, Tiff. If there was, it was a very long time ago. Do you love me? Come home. Let's try to rebuild the broken wreckage of our marriage." Her tone instantly changed. "Is this your pathetic cry for attention? I'll be back home when this vacation is over, not a minute sooner. And you better enjoy the taste of humiliation because I won't let you into the house until you apologize and admit that I was right. You know what? I'll practice my speech to make sure everything is correct. In the meantime, can I talk to our children?" She hung up. After thinking for a minute, she dialed the number again. She tried for an hour before giving up. The next day, it was my turn to receive the package. It contained an economy class ticket for that day and a short message. "You win, idiot. Get on the plane, and we'll talk when you arrive." I carefully peed on the ticket, let it mostly dry, but left it damp enough that the smell would let her know what it was. I sealed it in plastic and sent it back. Lou laughed until he cried when he heard it, then said that I shouldn't have done that. Then he became serious. I checked on her. She hasn't cheated on you yet, but some womanizing lawyer is hanging around her, and her mother leaves him alone with her every time she gets the chance. The mother and the alleged boyfriend have been seen having private conversations more than once, and this does not bode well. The presentation of the documents shocked her. She really doesn't know how to deal with the fact that you have a spine. Have you heard from her? I handed him my phone, and he transferred all conversations to his computer. He looked at me with a sad smile on his face. She really loves you, you know. Her mind has been filled with her perverted mother for so long that she was never ready for a real relationship. That's why she's stuck. Her mother had it ingrained in her that sooner or later, you're going to think about what you would like for them to return from vacation in 10 days. And then it is valid. Oh, I want you to be prepared because this could get very nasty. I encourage you to try to get her to be polite for the sake of the children." He sighed, and I felt a moment of sympathy. His marriage collapsed. His wife had an affair with his partner and best friend for a year. But when he found out about it and filed for divorce, she fought tooth and nail. This has been dragging on for almost a year, with no solution in sight. It was rumored that their inability to conceive had a lot to do with the relationship's progress. Tiffany called me several more times, allowing me to meet with the children. They wanted to know why I didn't take the ticket and also why their mother wasn't there. When I called Tiffany and she asked, I pounced on her as gently as possible. "Of course your head isn't that far up your 5th place. I wasn't invited until I started divorce proceedings, and it was more of an appeasement move than a sincere intention. Do you really think that if you throw me a bone, things will get better? You needed to come home. We could pick up the girls later and have a real family vacation. The Alpha couldn't allow that, could she? So stay, play with us, your lawyers, and developers, their wives and mistresses, beautiful, rich, high-class people, and don't pay attention to your loser husband. If you came home, we might have a chance." Her temper finally got the better of her. "This is the last time I want to hear about your stupid divorce plans." "Yes, I did it to teach you a lesson." "No, it didn't work out the way I planned, not at all. I will not cut this vacation short. You need to think about how you will meet my standards. We have a lot to discuss when we return. I want you to rest well because I'm going to blow your brains out when we get home. Once we learn to love, perhaps we will be able to look at things more calmly." "Is it true?" "Damn, this stupid defense makes up for being abandoned for a month so you could court with the rich and powerful. Flirt, maybe have a little fling, and see if the girls were right. All I can say is enjoy every minute of what they have left because I don't have them left." "Bruce." I was already starting to hang up. Well, 8 days later, I watched them leave the plane, looking tanned and tired, laughing and sharing memories. I promised I wouldn't lose it. The need to see my children was just overwhelming. But when I saw her walk out with Stephen Middleton, holding my youngest daughter's hand and looking like a loving family, I lost it. Some people recognized me, some were about to speak, but one look at my face convinced them that this was a really bad idea. He saw me first, flinched, and instantly let go of her hand. He must have said something to Tiff because she turned around with a smile that disappeared as soon as she saw me. It was the hand of God that prevented me from killing him on the spot, in the form of my girls. They surrounded me, hugging and kissing me, chatting about what they had done and how much fun they had. I let it go, enjoying the feeling of my children in my arms. Finally, I looked up and saw Tiff smiling through her tears. I stood up, and she rushed at me, desperately trying to hug and kiss me. I saw the confused look in her eyes when I didn't return the hug and ducked away from the kiss, gently pushing her away. "I'm so glad you came. I missed you so much. You have no idea, but I intend to show you this repeatedly tonight and for the rest of the weekend, for the rest of our lives. Are you going to take us home? Let me grab our bags and say goodbye to Stephen." Goodbye everyone. "Take your time, I'll take you home. I don't live there anymore. This will only complicate the divorce. I just wanted to see my daughters." More tears flowed. "No, I turned it off. For the first time in your life, Tiffany, it's not about what you want. I'll come tomorrow and pick up the girls if you don't refuse me." This wouldn't be a good idea. Her mother stood away from the girls, and Tiffany could see by the expression on her face that things were not going well. She headed toward us, and I warned her, unless you want to make a very ugly and public scene in front of your bosses and colleagues, I advise you to stop. "Your mother? If this says one word to me, I'll explode like a Roman candle." To her credit, Tiffany walked around me and stopped her mother. "This is between me and Bruce, so please don't say anything." It seemed like the top of her head was going to be torn off, but she stopped. When Tiffany turned around, I couldn't help but stick my tongue out at her. The girls caught it and giggled. She turned so red that I thought she might get hit, but unfortunately, she didn't. The girls were extremely disappointed, not understanding anything, but were delighted when I told them I would pick them up tomorrow at 8. Looking at Tiff, almost daring her to say something, she simply nodded, and I turned and left. Before I disappeared from sight, I turned around. Tiffany was in Stephen's arms, sobbing hysterically as her mother stroked her back. I think she was still settling in for a new man. The next morning was more than awkward. The girls ran out, eager to spend time with me. Tiffany appeared at the door with a thoughtful look, watching the girls get into the car. I took them to the park, then we grabbed some food and went to my house. It was a pretty nice apartment, but I had only rented it for 6 months. Lou said that very soon I would be able to afford the best. After we ate, I gently explained that their mother and I were getting a divorce. My eldest understood divorce because many of her friends came from broken homes, but my youngest did not take it very well. I wiped away her tears and reassured her as best I could that I still loved them both more than life itself and would always be a part of their lives. Tiffany moved toward me, but I pulled away. I avoided her for the rest of the weekend, but she surprised me at work Monday night by slipping out of a car I didn't recognize. I knew this would happen, but it still hurt. She was dressed simply in jeans and a top, but designed to seduce. There was even a little tummy showing, and she looked good for her age. Bruce, honey, please come home. I heard you. I know it now. It probably wasn't the best decision I've ever made, but it can make us stronger. Come home to me and the girls and let me fix this. I love you, Tiffany. I do. But you love yourself more. You will never be a full-fledged partner for any man. You will always keep a part of yourself to the side, ready to run away if you are disappointed. I've had most of you for a long time, waiting for you to give in completely, but you will never do this, not for me or anyone else. I blame your mother. Let me ask you one question, Tiff. Your father was a terrible man by all accounts, and your mother rightly hates him. But we're all not like him, darling, none of us. And although she seems to hate all men, she never had a hard time sleeping with most of the men at that law firm. What was her official title there? Available girl in residence? Most of them were married. Did she ever feel guilty for doing to their wives what your father did to her? She is a very perverted woman, and her influence over you will destroy you if you do not come to your senses. She didn't respond to the remarks about her mother, although her face turned red with anger. It's all about the money, isn't it? I sighed. That's it, Tiff. It's your money. It was never our money. I believe that if you could have had sole custody of the children, you would have left me out there too. Do you remember the expression to become one? It was in our wedding vows. I don't want all your money. I only wanted you. But that will never happen, right? Not with me and not with someone else you might fall in love with later. I can't be what you want, and you can't give me what I need. There's really not much more to say here, is there? And before you ask how I became so cold, I didn't. I love you more now than when we were dating, but my love is simply not enough. I'm not going to shed any more tears over something that will never happen. Let it go, darling. Let us go. Go find someone like your big lawyer. Talk to him as an equal while you have him until he faints. Maybe then you'll be happy. All the regrets, all the heartache, disappeared in a second. I wish I had recorded her. Tide, you are just as Mom said, aren't you? I loved you, gave you children, and still it all comes down to control and money. Well, damn you. Just so you know, I never slept with Steven while we were on vacation, but he tried his best. Maybe I'll actually start an affair with him. God knows it's been so long since I interacted with a real man that everything will seem completely new. Know that I will never allow this divorce. Not now, or ever. I have the best law firm in the state behind me, and you can't afford anything. They will eat you alive, and when you come to beg me to come back, I will allow you, after a while. What will you say about that? She looked and cried at the same time, her hands folded on her small breasts that I always thought were the right size. I looked at her for a count of 10, trying not to explode. I guess I should say that you just burned your last bridge. Bring your expensive law firm, you just screamed devastation, and I'm about to unleash the hounds of war. I hope you remember this evening for a long time. I got into my beat-up old Volkswagen and drove away, her mouth remaining open. I had several visits over the next few days. The first was from her mother. She burst into the video store in full scream. It was a Friday night, and there were a lot of customers there. You deceitful son of A. You hateful, vile idiot. Who's that you're sleeping with? Or is there more than one? Answer me, damned one. Ma'am, I have to ask you to leave the premises. You are disturbing the peace of my clients. There are children here, so watch your language. I said this as calmly as I could, knowing it would anger her even more. She continued screaming before aiming her ire at a woman in her 30s who was staring at her with her mouth open. I had already signaled to my employee to call the police, and they came in just as she attacked her. Is this the... Well, honey, his wife's mother is going to kick your 5th place for ruining her marriage. He won't want you when I'm done with you. Hell, you won't want you when I'm done with you. The woman, in a state of complete panic, ran into one of the aisles, and Mom followed her, shouting curses. The clock turned the corner and took cover behind the police, who were holding stun guns. Margaret tried to stop, but her heels failed her, and she collided with a policewoman, falling in a heap. The large male police officer immediately handcuffed her, and they stood back while she screamed and cursed, uttering slurs at the Hispanic woman and the black man. The woman leaned over and said something in Margaret's ear, and she immediately fell silent. She was a client, and I asked her later what she said. She simply smiled and said that she asked her to behave politely. Margaret was ultimately charged with attempted assault on a law enforcement officer, and trespassing because she refused to leave. I got the bonus of showing Lou the CCTV footage, and he got a restraining order. She couldn't come within 500 feet of me, my apartment, or my place of work. 3 days later, I was called to the front to meet with a gray-haired, respectable-looking man in an expensive suit. Let me guess. Martin Devin Bailey and Bartley, right? He looked a little unsure and admitted that this was the case after introducing himself. I didn't give him time to talk. Go back to the office, Mr. Henry. Don't bother me here again, or I'll get a restraining order for the entire firm. He raised his hands. You're welcome, Mr. Davis. I'm not here to bother you. I am here as a favor to your wife, to try to arrange a meeting between you two to discuss your problems. It's strange, Mr. Henry. My problems have lessened significantly since Tiffany and I separated. Tell her to just let the divorce run its course. I'm not asking for anything, but if she continues to push, I may reconsider my decision. Tell her if she loves her money as much as I think she does, to back off and let the divorce work out. But I understand that before the vacation, you were both quite happy. Why did a simple vacation cause such a dramatic shift? She understands that she made an error in judgment that she deeply regrets, but she is more than willing to discuss it. Tell me, Mr. Henry, were you on this vacation with your wife? Yes. How many other people were there with their spouses or partners? I can't say for sure, but most did. Tiffany told me why I wasn't with her. Yeah, she said you couldn't get that much time off work. Well, Mr. Henry, she would have been mistaken if she had told me that 4 days before she left. Even then, she said that I would have to pay for my participation if I wanted to go. She earns significantly more than I do, and part of our financial agreement was that she pays for all vacations. She said she was trying to teach me a lesson. Did you hear the personal message I sent her when she received the notification? I know that you were nearby. I have it on tape. I'm not making threats, but she has been under constant surveillance since the first week. Although she was there as a private citizen, the trip was partially financed by your companies. Some of the things we filmed will be of great interest to some spouses who couldn't go. I also saw how she behaved with Mr. Middleton in public, in the presence of most of her partners. While they were all smiling, free advice, watch out for it before it gets your firm into big trouble. If this gets ugly, I'll make sure most of the material is made public. Now, sir, go back to your firm and tell them what I said. Tell her what I said. Have a nice day, sir. The man was stunned, I could tell. I assumed that 90% of what I told him was new information. I got tired of it and called Lou Do It. Complete destruction. I hung up before he could answer. Tiffany Davis sat at the conference table, her mother on one side and Stephen on the other, listening to Matt recount the meeting. The two senior partners were there, just listening. She sighed when she heard that she had been observed for 3 weeks, recalling several specific instances where her actions would not have passed as the behavior of a married woman. She didn't really cheat on Stephen, but it came very close a few times, only managing to stop at the last moment when she realized what she was doing. She knew now that she was acting out of shock and anger at Bruce's behavior, but she did it anyway. Her plan didn't go anywhere close to what she had in mind. She was still stunned that he actually wanted a divorce, and that just didn't add up. Tiffany, your husband doesn't have more resources than a pension fund loan, and that kind of money wouldn't even cover a quarter of what 3 weeks of constant monitoring cost. Until now, he hasn't even filed papers. The ones you received on the island were separation papers and unsigned, so we are still in the dark as to who is representing him and what he really wants. So far, he hasn't been demanding. He must know that you are worth millions, and there is no proof if he has the materials he talks about. If things get ugly, it could cost you a ton of money. I honestly don't know what to advise you. If you don't want a divorce, you need to find a way to get to him without annoying him. If this is unavoidable, you need to act quickly to protect your assets. Margaret couldn't hold it in any longer. Dump this loser, honey. He has served his purpose and given you 2 beautiful children. Now it's time to cut your losses and save your money. Bruce doesn't care about money, Mom. That was never the point. I drove him into this situation, and now I don't know how to fix it. He told me before I left that if I left, he wouldn't be there when I returned, and I left anyway. I never thought he would actually leave me. Nobody knew what to say at that moment. Matt Henry secretly thought that success had made her arrogant, and her husband was a quiet, non-aggressive type who waited too long to take a stand. Plus, she had received some really bad advice from her mother. He personally despised Margaret. She had tried to seduce him early in his tenure at the firm, and he flatly refused. There was nothing attractive about her to him. He could see traces of her beauty, but her personality and lifestyle made her features less human, for lack of a better word. They were interrupted by an employee who appeared with a package of documents, whispering something to the senior partner. He shuddered but smiled. Oh well, now we know who represents him, Lou Walters. We confronted him twice and destroyed him both times. It won't be as difficult as we thought. One of the other partners, Wilson, their local family law expert, who had been listening quietly, sat up straight. It could be Mort, but that was a long time ago when he had just graduated from school. I've seen him in action several times. He's fast, lethal on cross-examination, and he's just like us. He will do anything to win. Let's try negotiations first." Matt read the documents quietly, looking increasingly worried as he went along. "This could be bad. Very bad. All your husband wants is to get out of the marriage and have access to his children, plus lose royalties. It could easily be over $100,000, depending on how difficult the job is for him. If you fight him, he won't hold back. He will demand half of your assets in alimony in order to live in the style to which he is accustomed. That's about $25 million, and alimony can range from $6,000 to $8,000 a month, depending." Margaret screamed, and Tiffany fainted. Lou called me a couple of weeks later. "They want to meet." I wasn't in the mood. "Tell them no." Lou sighed. "You should meet Bruce. Find out everything. Honestly tell her once and for all that there is no turning back. Maybe Matt can convince her of sanity. Either that, or we could drag the case through court. It could take months, trust me, I know." His divorce was still going on for almost a year, a record for Florida. His ex, Mona, was a pretty smart lawyer, and I know it was terrible. I met him once right after the meeting, and he looked like a ghost. I took a chance by calling his best friend, Bill, and he showed up within 40 minutes. We took him to O'Brien's bar. O'Brien looked at us, took a dusty bottle from a shelf, and led us to a quiet corner. "Here, boys. You're going to need this." It was 50-year-old whiskey, smooth as silk, with a punch that could knock down a mule. We drank a bottle. Bill had recently gone through a difficult divorce and was still in pain. "God, I hope I won't be so exhausted when my case is over." Bill raised his glass when we finished the bottle. "For bitter endings and sweet beginnings." We all raised our glasses. I had never heard a more accurate toast. He later told me it was an old Irish saying. I walked up to the bar, slightly swaying, to pay, and Pat waved me through. He's a good guy, Mr. Davis, with a wonderful wife. They worshiped the ground each other walked on for many years. Then they found out they couldn't conceive, and everything went wrong. Both were suffering, and when he found solace in work, she began an affair with his business partner. This went on for a year before he discovered them. It was a very difficult time for both of them. She realized what she was losing, and now she's fighting with all her might to keep him. He was badly hurt, and although he loves her desperately, he will never take her back. What happened to your partner? O'Brien chuckled. Oh, they dissolved the partnership, and he continued his flirtatious ways. In the end, he seduced the girl and woke up one day with almost every bone in his body broken. He was in a cast for 8 months, and as soon as he could walk, he left town. I heard he's in Portland or somewhere on the West Coast. Good riddance. I looked at Lou as Maitland helped him up, wondering if he was capable of such violence. I had trained in martial arts for 20 years and fought professionally for 2 years, so I knew how destructive someone with little training could be. Bill and Lou got into an unmarked police car and drove away. I turned around and saw a taxi waiting for me with a message from Maitland. Thank you for helping my friend. He needed this today. If you ever need a favor, let me know. The taxi is paid for and will take you wherever you want. I went home, took a semi-cold shower to recover, and collapsed. I was just starting to fall asleep when the phone rang. I answered sleepily and heard silence. Hello? Hello? Then I heard it, uneven breathing with a hint of a sob. Tiffany. The line immediately went dead. I thought about calling her, but I knew she wouldn't answer. It took me a long time to fall asleep. I called Lou the next day to arrange a meeting. Lou trained me mercilessly, let me speak. Do not engage in dialogue with her, and do not answer her lawyer's questions. Do you understand? I understand. Our plan went to hell as soon as we entered the large conference room, finding it crowded with lawyers and their assistants. Lou raised an eyebrow at Matt, who blushed. Mort Bailey immediately began to attack. Young man, do you know who I am? Of course, I knew who he was, but I wanted to tease him. I'll go out on a limb, and it's just a guess, a very old lawyer. He blushed. His partners looked alarmed, and one of the paralegals turned away to hide a smile. Lou looked stunned and then chuckled. Good observation, Mr. Davis. This gentleman, Mort Bailey, is one of the founders of this firm. Really? I thought they all died years ago. He must be 100 years old now. Mr. Bailey is not happy. In his sternest voice, he began to speak. Stop acting like a teenager, Mr. Davis. You're making me wonder why Tiffany is so desperate to save her marriage. Now listen to me carefully. You will stop this ridiculous process. You will go home to your loving family. You will undergo counseling until you resolve your differences, and I expect sincere gratitude when we meet again. Our firm is willing to cover all consultation costs as a gesture of goodwill." Lou smiled openly. "Guess, Mort, this isn't some teenager who stole your car, and your gesture of goodwill is just a clear attempt to cover your 5th place. If this goes to trial, we have lots of photos taken with very high-powered cameras. Do you think your company's reputation will remain intact if we expose the back and forth that your corporate vacation has become? I hope you say no to our proposals. I've waited 9 years to shove something up your 5th place, and so have you." They gave it to me on a silver plate. I thought the old man would have a heart attack. I couldn't help but laugh as I stood up. All these people are lawyers and paralegals. They're all so attractive. Well, except for Marge. Looks like you got them from Central Casting. Did you sign with a talent agency to fill the spots? This was supposed to be a simple meeting between me, my wife, her lawyer, and mine. This wasn't supposed to be a planned performance. And why are the big shots here? Sounds cool, right? Maybe they can take their show on tour, and the rest shouldn't be within 500 feet of me. You should know that since you're the one who got her twisted 5th place out of jail. Maybe I should call the cops instead. I think Lou and I will just leave. I wasn't a fan of the circus. Here's the deal, 2 weeks, just Matt, Tiffany, Lou, and me. No one else. If I find her mother somewhere nearby, it will be another 4 weeks. I would ask you if you understood, but I don't care. Shall we go, Lou? You could have heard a pin drop when we walked out. We were halfway to the elevator when 2 assistants and a paralegal caught up with us, first demanding and then begging us to return. We didn't answer, and they eventually gave up. When we got to the elevator, we made it inside just before Lou collapsed laughing. I just chuckled when he spoke. I was just going to beat them up softly, and you took off and, well, you know. I just smiled, the image of Tiffany silently crying still in my head. Weeks passed, and the meeting was scheduled to take place at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. It wasn't going to be in any of the offices, so we decided to go neutral and rented a small conference room at a local convention center. Lou warned the firm several times that if anything funny happened, all negotiations would end. He specifically warned Stephen Middleton and Marge not to approach. Lou even went so far as to hire private security. They were the ones who noticed Marge, and Lou was alerted. He kept 911 on standby, quickly speaking on the phone. "My client and I are heading to a conference at the Westin Convention Center, and there is a woman with a restraining order against her waiting to attack him. Please send an officer." We walked a little slower, and once we even stopped for a few minutes to talk. "What are you doing?" I asked. "I'm stalling for time. I want the cops close when she surprises us." "Ready?" I nodded. We had just approached the building when she ran out. "You idiot! Leave Tiffany alone. You won't see a dime of her money, I guarantee it. Can you hear me, you an idiot?" She was literally drooling. I smiled. "Sorry, Marge. All the pleasure you've given over the years must have damaged your vocal cords. I don't quite understand what you're saying. Had some good lawyer night recently, or have they already replaced you with a younger one that they can actually feel?" Her face changed colors from red to white to purple. She was practically foaming at the mouth. "You an idiot! Stephen is going to kick your 5th place and have an intimate with Tiffany in front of you. How do you like that?" She swung at me, and I could have easily avoided or blocked the blow, but I did nothing. Everyone on the street could hear the sound of her palm hitting my face, music to my ears. I chuckled as the cops tackled her to the ground, kicking and screaming. She was bundled into a police car and taken to jail within 3 minutes, especially after Lou showed them a copy of the restraining order. I looked around for Middleton, but he was hiding somewhere under a rock. Lou texted Matt Henry the full video with the message, "You've been warned. I'm afraid the conference is canceled. You and your client will be busy trying to get her mother out of jail. We'll call, but it won't be soon." Tiffany sat in shock while Matt raged. "Why did you let her do this? In my opinion, your mother was never very stable, and she took all the hatred she had for her ex out on Bruce. She will continue until she gets into serious trouble, which even the best legal firm in the world won't be able to get her out of. Honestly, Tiffany, your mother needs professional help. We're obviously not going to meet with Lou and Bruce, so let's see what we can do for your mother. Wait a second while I make a call. Get yourself together, and I'll be back as soon as I'm done." He answered the second call. "Stephen Middleton," he said, moving the phone away from his ear. The voice was so loud. "You idiot! What were you thinking? You were given specific instructions to stay away, and you brought her mother knowing about the restraining order. They have a video of you talking to her minutes before the attack and a recording. How are you hiding when the police show up? Your partners will be extremely unhappy with you, very unhappy. You don't have to tell them, Matt laughed. I don't think so. I've worked too hard to get to where I am now to have it all ruined by some horny idiot who can't resist flirting with a married woman. Get ready, buddy, you're in for a lot of apologies and bows. Matt returned to the room to find Tiffany sitting with her head on the table, crying. He lifted her gently, and she fell into his arms, sobbing. Why, Matt? How did things get so out of control? I just wanted him to get stronger, to stop fooling around and grow up. Matt sighed. Well, you partially achieved your goal. I don't think he just got stronger, honey. I think he kicked King Kong's 5th place. You hurt his manhood, honey. The worst thing you can do to a man, of course he'll fight back if he has any pride. You need to come to terms with reality, Tiffany. You probably won't get him back. Now, what do you want to do about your mother? Tiffany sighed. Call Mort and let him take care of it. She may have just killed any chance I had of saving the marriage, and I really don't want to see her right now. Tiffany, I know it's none of my business, but you know I've always cared about you. You're like a niece to me, so I have to say this. Your mother needs help, serious help. She's starting to come out of control, and again, if she keeps pushing Bruce, she's going to end up in jail and not just it. Stephen Middleton smiled as he entered the office, hoping that today's events had created such a rift in Tiffany's attempt to reconcile with her husband that divorce was inevitable. She was beautiful, had a great figure, and he knew that. Her chests were a little small, but he was sure that, given enough time, he could convince her to have breast enlargement surgery. She had 2 kids, but he was already trying to win over her children. The best part was that even if her husband got half of her money, she would still be worth millions. The future couldn't be brighter. Her company was making a ton of money, and she was getting most of it. The receptionist stopped smiling when she saw him, but then broke into a wide grin. Mr. Bailey wants to see you now. I'll call him and tell him you're on your way, she said, smiling as he left. He had a charming personality and an exceptionally large ego, and she enjoyed their encounters immensely. But after he slept with her a couple of times, he lost interest and started pursuing someone else. As she thought about it, she considered herself lucky. The poor woman he was pursuing now was doomed to a broken heart if she left her husband for him. It almost made her want to warn her, but she was also a bit of a narcissist. Maybe they all deserved each other. Stephen put on a confident smile as he entered the office, and neither of them was smiling. How may I be of service to you and the firm on this fine day? Wilson spoke first. The husband may not have any resources, but he has powerful new friends, friends who can make life very difficult for everyone in the firm. Listen to him, Stephen. Divorce is practically a foregone conclusion, so stay away and don't add fuel to the fire. And we've largely turned a blind eye to your actions. However, now that someone else is looking, you can count on me, Stephen replied, but in his mind, he thought, *, your own damn business. When I have money, our specialty will be kicking your petrified asses, *. Stephen continued to mutter in his computer and looked at the screensaver, Tiffany Shore. She gently pushed him away. She didn't resist when he kissed her. The things, it will never happen. I already and belittled her husband at every opportunity. He almost did a dance of joy when she collapsed. Lou was not happy with the choice, unfair. The downside is that she's a hopeless romantic, so she tends to root for a happy end. I'll even say please. I was on the verge of an explosion while Tiffany looked hopeful. Lou and Matt both leaned forward. Matt spoke quickly. Do it, Bruce. Trust me, it will help. Lou, who was still forced to attend what amounted to marathon counseling sessions, wasn't so sure. Or you can get bogged down in a never-ending stream of crap. However, if they sign a binding agreement that once the sessions are over, they are over, and can only continue if Bruce agrees, I think you should do it. I think everyone was shocked when I agreed. Tiffany had a huge smile on her face. I could tell that she firmly believed I had returned to her. I hoped she was ready for what was really going to happen. The judge took the choice of consultants out of our hands, saying that if she did, no one could accuse her of bias. Martha Jones was 10 years older than us, I would say in her mid-40s, and had been practicing for almost 20 years with an excellent reputation. Her only job, she assured us, was to find a solution, regardless of what she personally thought was right. I went first, and I think she thought I was lying when I told her about our life. I recounted the whole story of our relationship from the very beginning. She made some general comments, concluding with, "You must have really loved her to live the way you did. Tell me, In your honest opinion, do you consider yourself a good writer? Many of your problems seem to stem from your passion and determination to continue. I didn't like my answer, but I had to be honest. Based on my track record, the facts would disagree, but I believed I was a good writer, just a good writer who hadn't written a good book yet. It was this belief that kept me going. Tiffany knew about my dreams and even encouraged me the first few years, but as she moved up the career ladder and the money got better, she openly began to hate it. She told me more than once to stop chasing something I would never catch up with and do something useful with my life. I simply cannot give up my dream, and perhaps I never will, I replied. Fair enough. Thank you for your time, Mr. Davis. Remember, your first session together is next Thursday. Please see my secretary on the way out. Thank you, Dr. Jones. That was one of the things I admired about her. Early in her career, she decided to always keep things professional, so she always addressed her clients as Mr. and Mrs. and insisted that they call her Dr. Jones. I'm not here to be your friend, I'm here to be your guide. I want you to keep in mind that this is a professional relationship and should be taken with the seriousness it deserves. I completely agreed. Tiffany looked around the office nervously. It took 4 months, but she felt she finally had a chance to get her husband back. She knew she had to move slowly and with caution. It was too important for her to ruin it. Besides, she had actually achieved what she wanted when she left Bruce for a month. He had definitely grown in appearance, and she wondered how difficult it would be to manage him in the future. Confident that she could bring him to obedience, she smiled, glad that she would get her life back. It only took Dr. Jones 20 minutes to destroy her confidence before she spoke. Dr. Jones outlined the results of her session with Bruce, pausing when she finished and looking closely at Tiffany. Did he lie? It all sounded as unfair as she described it. Bruce is many things, Dr. Jones, but he is not a liar. Yes, our relationship is basically as he described. You make about 8 to 10 times more than your husband, but he pays almost all the bills. Does that seem balanced to you? Tiffany sighed. You don't understand. A man has to support his family, and he has no right to my money. That was our agreement. It seemed like it was much more acceptable to you than it was to him. What were your financial responsibilities? I clothed the family and paid for all the extra expenses, for example, vacations. She sighed. Yes, Dr. Jones, I like vacations. I'm sure Bruce told you about the time I left him for a month for a vacation in the islands. Yes, it was unfair, and yes, it was intentional. And yes, I said a lot of hurtful things before I left, but I did it for a reason. A reason? I wanted to shock him so that he would give up his childhood dream of becoming a writer and enter the real world. He is not an idiot, doctor. He could succeed in anything if only he made an effort. So your way of motivating him was to poke him with insufficient financial resources, leaving him at home while you had fun on vacation, leaving him with the idea that you may or may not take a lover while you were away? Indeed, Mrs. Davis, does that sound like reasonable behavior for a married woman? This sounds like the behavior of a desperate woman who wanted her husband to make her proud of him again. When I realized my mistake, I sent him a ticket to join us. His stubborn dignity did not allow him to come. So you've admitted that you've lost respect for him? You and the rest of your family were flying first class, but you sent him an economy ticket with a nasty note telling him to stop whining. Did you really expect him to come? He says that you asked several times what it would take to heal the breakup before it came to this. When he told you to prove your love and return home, you refused every time. Why did you do it if you knew that your relationship was in serious danger? By your own admission, you are quite wealthy. It would have been easy for you to fly home, settle your differences, and later have a nice family vacation. Why didn't you do what he asked? For the first time in all the sessions, she lost her composure. Because he doesn't own me. I'm my own boss, and I can do what I see fit. He needed this lesson, and I endured long enough to give it to him. I was embarrassed when he accompanied me to corporate events. I was too humiliated to introduce him as a video store manager, so I said he was a writer working on a book. When they asked what he wrote, I said he had not yet been published. After 3 years, I was tired of it. He was proud to be my husband and showed his love by becoming a man of the real world rather than living in his dreams. So you think he's no longer a suitable partner for someone of your level? Yes, no. I don't know for sure. I still love him, and this breakup was terrible. I've never been so lonely in my life, and believe me, doctor, there were several successful, quite handsome men who offered to console me. I even succumbed to temptation once or twice, but I remained faithful. Why can't we go back to the way things were? You mean like before the holiday? You disrespect him, exclude him from your life and the lives of your children while you go away without him. I'm afraid you won't be able to turn back time, Mrs. Davis, and this could be a fatal blow to your marriage. Did you really think you would stay the same after you left, while he was practically begging you to stay? You've both told me that one of your goals was to get him to be brave, and now you're not happy with that. What exactly do you want, Mrs. Davis? Tiffany finally broke down. I want a man who will be my equal, a proud, successful, confident man who will not be interested in my money. Dr. Jones realized she had reached a turning point. So your stated intention is to never allow him access to anything you have. Why? Tell me, of all the married friends and business associates you know, how many have the same agreement as you and your husband? A lot, she replied. My guess is none. She abruptly changed the subject, keeping Tiffany in the dark. Tell me about your parents. Did you have a good upbringing at home? Did your father teach you responsibility and your mother love? My father was a creepy jerk who abandoned my mother when I was little, leaving her in debt after draining her bank accounts. So you think all men are like this? Is Bruce like this? No, Bruce isn't like that. But then again, I'll never give him a chance to touch what I've earned. Is that the reason you're so insistent that he pays the bills? Who are you punishing here, Bruce or your father? The realization hit her like a bucket of ice water, and she fainted. When she came to her senses, she was even more determined to keep everything as it was. Martha Jones reviewed her notes after Tiffany left, frowning. This will end badly, no doubt about it. Her best hope was to send Mrs. Davis into long-term counseling. When it was all over, perhaps this would save her next husband from a world of misery. I sighed as I walked into Dr. Jones's office. This was the third and last session, thank God. The first two had been disasters. Tiffany couldn't figure out what was wrong with her behavior and attitude. She was upset that I was upset and wanted me to come home and let her love me and heal my wounds. Tiffany, darling, you are the hottest woman I've ever known. Honestly, I know I'll probably never find someone on your level again. I'll miss the love, no doubt about it, but we can't live in bed. We'll still have to face real life. I've loved you most of my adult life, and it will be a long time, if ever, before I stop loving you. But it's time to move on. I'll be what you want me to be, and you'll never change. We'll never be one. You'll always have a tight grip on your money, and there'll always be a part of you that I'll never have, like you've always had sneakers in the closet next to high heels, and you will always be ready to put them on at any moment and run away. This may happen next time when I disappoint you and do not live up to your expectations. Yes, I am sure that we will be better than ever, but sooner or later we will return to the way things were. Let's stop this cycle now and try to move on. Let's raise our children to be happy, productive people who can cope with the disappointments and difficulties in their lives. Dr. Jones joined the conversation. Mrs. Davis, this is the last session. If I saw the slightest chance of a happy ending, I would insist on additional sessions. But you two are so far apart in expectations that I seriously doubt any reconciliation will last. I'm going to recommend to the judge to grant the divorce. I know it hurts now, but in the future, you will see that it was the right decision. I'm sorry that it didn't work out for you. I see that you both still love each other, but this no more is enough. Tiffany set a new record for hysterics, screaming and literally foaming at the mouth a couple of times. You just wanted to own me, didn't you? Go to hell. Go to hell. Go to hell. Get your divorce. Enjoy being alone while I enjoy passionate intimate with a real man. Forget about the kids. You won't see them anymore. I am sure that between me and Mom, we will teach them how to treat men correctly. They will grow up to be strong, independent women who are not dependent on men. Forget about my money. I will give it all before I give you a dime. I think I will give it to you to court for alimony. Go to hell, idiot. She finally calmed down, realizing at least part of what she said. She covered her mouth with her hand and began to sob. She hit me hard with her threats, and I stood up. Sorry, Dr. Jones. I know we have half an hour left in the session, but I think you'll agree that we're done here. I thought this was going to be a huge waste of time, but I've learned a few things about myself, about Tiffany, and about the condition of my marriage, unpleasant things in general. Thank you, sincerely. I walked out while Tiffany was crying and Dr. Jones was calling for me. 3 days later, I received a court date. Tiffany did not respond to therapy as I had hoped. She went into DEFCON 4, a full nuclear offensive that surprised almost everyone. This is absolute nonsense, but in the long run, it will help us. Alimony maintenance? What were they thinking? I can't believe Matt agreed to this. He has to understand what a huge Pandora's box this will open. Lou looked at me carefully. "Bruce, I want you to swear to me that if we start this, you'll see it through. Seriously, if you think there's even the slightest chance of reconciliation, we can stop now. If not, then it will be a war." They are so stupid that they go into this with their eyes open. I'd love to open their eyes to the real world. I'm serious. Make it public, make it painful, and make it expensive. She should not have gotten a restraining order that prevents me from seeing my children. I was furious when I received the summons. I never thought that Tiffany would try to poison my relationships with other women. I strongly suspected that Marge had persuaded her to do this when she was emotionally weakened. Lou assured me that he would have this order canceled, but it would take time. With Matt's encouragement, Lou made another attempt to stop things before they got really ugly. "Leave it, Tiffany. It's gone too far. Too much pain has been spread for either of you to go back. Give him a fair settlement, forget about him, and move on with your lives." She looked at him as if he had grown two heads. "You're my lawyer, remember? Do your best, and I expect good results." He simply sighed and lowered his head. Lou tried again. "Please, Mrs. Davis, I'm begging you. If we go to court, everything will be public record. Years from now, your children can read the transcripts and understand how hard this was for both of you. Let's all maintain our dignity." Her tirade was epic. The action lasted 4 days, received national coverage, and made us both look pathetic. On the second day, a cartoonist released a drawing that ended up in the New Yorker attached to a detailed article. The cartoon depicted both of us, me as a mouse with a lion's head, and her as an eagle with huge talons and an exaggerated beak. The caption read, "Super weakness versus alpha will." The mouse roars. When it was almost over and the vehicle records were revealed, they showed a photo of her house with the open garages, filled with all her gleaming cars, next to my dirty old Volkswagen in the parking lot of an apartment building. Public opinion was definitely on my side. It was a cool December morning when we entered the courtroom for the last time. He was called a hanging judge, but I had never met a more principled person. He was still suffering from his own divorce 3 years ago. She really tried to hurt him, but the lawyers sided with him, exposing her lover as a mid-level substance dealer and catching her in their business. She walked away with a third of what she expected and spent most of it on legal expenses. She left the city as a beggar, and it is rumored that she chose the oldest profession in the world to pay rent. The judge called us to order and looked at the crowded room. Lou wisely spread rumors that this could become a landmark case, a nearly penniless husband divorcing his wealthy wife and demanding a fair division of property. There were many journalists and legal professionals aware of the blood feud between Leo and Martin, Devin, Bailey, and Bartley. I was surprised to see Bill Maine's ex-wife in the audience. I wondered if she was gaining experience for her next husband. "Ladies and gentlemen," the judge began, "it seems to me that this case is of considerable interest. I do not want any shouting, no comments, and no disruption of order. This is a common divorce case. There are thousands like this in our country. Now let's start with the opening statements." Matt Henry tried his best, but he had a weak case. Everything started to fall apart when Lou called Tiffany to the stand. He looked at her with real sympathy in his eyes. "After you're settled, Mrs. Davis, do you agree with the estimate of your net worth?" "Yes." This was said in an even tone without emotion. I knew it would be difficult for her to control her hot temper, and it wouldn't take long for Lou to provoke her. "Do you agree with your husband's net worth estimate?" She nodded. "Then why are you so desperate to deprive him of his fair share? He was married to you for 8 years. Tell me, even with such a huge difference in your income, who paid for the house?" "Bruce paid, but I made a down payment." "Who paid for electricity, cable TV, and the like?" "He was paying." For the first time, she looked defiant. "Because it was his responsibility as a husband." "So you earned on average 8 times his salary per year. What were your responsibilities in the marriage? What did you spend your money on?" "I took care of my girls, paid school fees, and any other random expenses." "Did that include vacation?" Tiffany knew where this was going, and she understood there was nothing she could do to stop it. Matt jumped to his feet in protest, but the referee overruled him. "That's a fair question, Mr. Henry. Accounting for finances is a big part of the process in these cases. Carry on, Mr. Walters. Do you understand what caused all this?" "Yes." "Would you like to explain?" "No." "Well then, let me explain from my client's point of view. You took him by surprise by announcing that you were taking your family on a month's vacation to Hawaii, and he wasn't included unless he could pay for his participation and arrange a vacation for himself. Isn't it true that you told him you were leaving him on purpose to teach him a lesson and that you may or may not have an affair while you were gone? It wasn't like that. Please, Mrs. Davis, enlighten us. What really happened between you and your husband? I knew it was cruel, but I needed to teach him a lesson. He wasn't doing his part in the marriage, working a dead-end job, chasing a ridiculous dream. This should have been a wake-up call to motivate him. Well, it didn't go according to plan, did it? You hardly communicated with him, denying him the opportunity to talk to your children. Only the threat of divorce forced you to do something. Yes, you sent him a ticket business class while the rest of the family flew first class, knowing that he would not be able to take time off. You've asked him what needs to be done to heal the rift between you, and he's begging, yes, begging, for you to come home so you can work on your marriage. Are you here? No, it was said more sullenly, but I could see she was seething. It wouldn't last long if Lou kept pushing. I'll ask you why later. Going back to the threat of having an affair, did you really mean it? No, despite our problems, I love my husband. So, the entire month you were gone, parties, clubs, the beach, you never did anything inappropriate? She hesitated and admitted in a quiet voice that she had been flirting a lot. Is this all just flirting? Well, I can understand that. After all, you weren't accompanied by a beautiful woman in a tropical paradise. Your Honor, my client was concerned about her fidelity and was watching her while on vacation. May I show a few photographs that might shed light on her activities while she was enjoying herself on the island while her husband was working from home? Matt immediately jumped to his feet. Your Honor, what is he doing? These photographs were taken illegally and cannot be shown. Your Honor, no laws were broken. The photographs were taken while the subjects were on public property, and the photographers were not in violation either. There is no right to privacy in public places in Hawaii. These photographs are vital to our case. Furthermore, her attorney knew about the photographs. We have decided not to introduce them into evidence unless necessary. Given Mrs. Davis's behavior, I think it is best to show them. Judge Herring thought for a moment. Okay, I will allow the photographs to be shown, but not in open court. We'll go to my office for 15 minutes. Is that enough, Counselor? No, Your Honor, but we'll take it. Matt, Lou, Tiffany, and I followed the judge, Tiffany looking like she was about to faint. Lou handed him a stack of glossier 8x10 photographs, each more incriminating than the last. He wouldn't let me see them, and now I understood why. The first was of my family at the beach, the kids playing in the sand and Tiffany and Steven sitting on lounge chairs, holding hands. It was a scene of domestic bliss, and the smile on her face was bright. The next was of them in the ocean on a surfboard, waiting for a wave. Her top was either unzipped or had been taken off, and his hands were covering the small breasts I had loved for so long as she leaned against him. The next was of them in a dark club, dancing and embracing, both of his hands tightly clasped around her fifth place as she pressed herself against him. Her dress, what was left of it, was hiked up. I wanted to break something so badly. I needed to get out now. Lou nodded, and I ran out, finding myself outside gasping for air. I heard her scream in the distance as I was thrown onto the sidewalk. Lou gave me a few minutes and came out with a bottle of cold water. I rinsed my mouth a couple of times before finishing the rest. Are you okay now? No, but calm enough to come back. I walked past her without looking and took my seat again. Lou looked at her with real sadness, ready to continue. She nodded slightly. Are you still saying nothing inappropriate happened? I made mistakes, okay? I was angry and embarrassed and let my guard down, but I never, not once, slept with anyone while I was there. Would you forgive him if he was in the picture with the big-breasted blonde? Her eyes widened and her anger showed, but she calmed down. Honestly, I don't know, but I'd like to believe that I would have forgiven him if he didn't sleep with her. I believe you, Mrs. Davis. Let's step away from vacation for a minute. What cars do you have? Why does this matter? Your Honor, answer the question, Mrs. Davis. I have a Lexus sedan, a Range Rover, and another luxury SUV for family outings. How new are they? I bought the Lexus 6 months ago. The other two are less than 3 years old. Do you drive anything else? I have a company car, a Land Cruiser. What kind of car does your husband drive? None of them. He has his own car. Oh, that's right. He has a 12-year-old Volkswagen with 150,000 miles on it. What kind of car does he drive when his car is broken? None of them. These are my cars. So when your husband's car breaks down and you have 3 other cars in the garage, he has to look for alternative transportation. Why? Because these are my cars. If he got a better job, he could afford a better car. Let me boil it down to the basics. Everything you have is yours exclusively. The money you earn is yours and is never shared, while he pays for the accommodation, and you contribute and invest your money, right? Yeah, but that's all I have for now. Your Honor, thank you, Mrs. Davis. Now it's my turn. Although he sometimes looked disgusted, Matt attacked me on the stand, asking questions that had only one answer. Lou kept pushing him back, getting more rejected than satisfied. In conclusion, Matt portrayed me as a gold digger waiting for an opportunity to financially destroy his wife. It sounded a little weak, even to me. Lou was eloquent and sympathetic to both of us. In the end, it was obvious that I had a good chance of coming out financially secure with a divorce in my pocket. Your Honor, if it had been a woman in this case, the decision would have been a foregone conclusion before the hour of the hearing. She's the breadwinner, and he gave her many good years, never complaining about the huge difference in their incomes. He paid most of her living expenses while she was saving her money. He was the primary caregiver for their children, as she often worked erratic hours. He always adjusted his schedule to accommodate her. Please, Your Honor, give him what is fair and right. It was never about the money, but he deserves a fair settlement. The judge adjourned the hearing for 2 hours to consider the case. It was 7 in the evening when we all returned. The gallery was so densely packed that there were no empty seats. The judge asked us to stand in front of him. Mr. and Mrs. Davis, it is clear that you still love each other. In this case, however, I do not believe that the rift can be healed. Therefore, I will grant the divorce. Under Florida law, I award the husband $2 million, a Range Rover, and $6,800 per month for a period of 3 years or until he remarries. If, within that period, you remarry, note that this is fair and consistent with the laws of this state. You must arrange for the funds to be transferred to his account within the next 30 days and immediately hand over the vehicle to him. The first maintenance check will be received in a month. Please, Mrs. Davis, be reasonable about this. I will be very displeased if I see you here in a month for not complying with my decree. And Mr. Davis, use the years wisely and plan for your future. The court session is closed. Tiffany collapsed, and the judge called paramedics. He advised Lou and me to leave before she woke up, so we left. The case made front-page news in every newspaper in Florida, including the New York Times, the Washington Post, Louisiana Times, Chicago Tribune, and most other major newspapers across the country, including the Wall Street Journal. The headline read, "Welcome to the 21st Century Family Law." Most of the newspapers contained a description of our divorce and the reasons for it. Life went on as usual. Tiffany and I lived parallel lives. I picked up the girls every other weekend and every other Thursday. Judge Herring overturned the restraining order and removed it from public records, sternly admonishing social services for failing to adequately investigate the allegations and requiring Morty Bailey to explain himself to the bar, which resulted in him being issued a warning. I knew she was dating Middleton. It was painful, but I understood that it was inevitable. It took a lot of effort from the law firm to get her to hand over the money. It's strange, but receiving $2 million did not bring me any joy. Lou took $300,000 just to cover his expenses, but for him, it wasn't about the money either. It cost more money to hit Morty Bailey, he told me. Besides, my office is full of men whose wives are worth much more than them, hoping for the same result. He was very selective about the cases he took and usually won. Most cases were settled out of court as soon as it became known that he was a lawyer. He earned money by the handful but was still unhappy. He finally got divorced and was dating a local woman, very attractive, the heiress to a multi-million-dollar paving company. I hoped he would find happiness. Sometimes I would meet him at O'Brien's. Sometimes we sat at the same table, often with Mel. This man had gained an international reputation for his success in difficult and dangerous cases. I once saw his wife, or ex-wife, a stunning blonde with an impressive bust. Lawyers seem to attract some insanely hot women, but then again, Tiffany could compete with any of them. Speaking of hot women with big busts, I started dating an Italian girl, a dark brunette with great breasts. Apparently, the girls told Tiffany about Deanna, and I got a snarky call for the first time in months. So, you finally got a big-breasted woman into bed. Did you think about me while you were playing with those saggy breasts? They'll sag to her knees when she gets old, and I'll still be firm and bouncy. Of course, you have them, you will never see them again. However, in 20 years, I can send you a photo. Tiffany, does this make any sense? You should be happy having an intim with as much as you have now. Why won't you leave me alone? I don't want to know anything about you, especially about your nightlife. Go back to your big one and count your blessings. You still have most of your money, and at your rate, you'll have even more in a few years. You know I didn't touch that money. It wasn't about them. I'll give it to the girls when they grow up. No, it wasn't about the money, idiot. It was about owning me. I'm still an independent woman, no matter who I marry. Later, there will be an ironclad marriage contract. This will never happen again. It was a mistake to leave you, knowing how proud you are. Next time, I will be much more careful. Well, if my heart wasn't already broken, it is now. I never thought marrying you was a mistake, Tiff. I loved you with all my heart, and it just wasn't enough. But until the last few months, I never regretted marrying you. Do me a favor, Tiff, don't talk to me anymore. I can't stand the pain from you anymore. She started crying, trying to apologize, and I gently hung up. I took some of my allowance and rented a very nice apartment near the beach, within walking distance of a lot of shops and restaurants. Each of my girls had their own room, which I let them decorate. Rumors spread about who I was. The girls must have said something to Tiffany because the next weekend, just before midnight, she called. I immediately recognized the sounds of intimate. The screams got to me, and I hung up. She called back immediately. Don't you dare hang up. Now I'll never go back to a loser like you. I want you to listen, freak, because if it weren't for your pride, all this would still be yours. I didn't hang up. I threw the phone against the wall with such force that it broke. The next evening, she called again. I didn't break the phone, I just hung up and took out the battery. While trying to sleep the next night, when she called, I was ready. You need to stop this nonsense. I'm serious, Tiffany. If you do this again, you won't like it. This must be something serious, Tiffany thought as she was called into her CO's office. She wondered what it would be about. By then, it was 2009, and the real estate market was starting to burst at the seams. Easy deals became rare, and people in the industry began to get nervous. Luckily, it was mostly in the family home market, but everyone was still tense. She was immediately shown into the office and was surprised to see Morty Bailey there. He and her boss were brothers-in-law, and his firm was closely tied to hers. She played it cool when she saw Steven. After the phone call, the relationship between them cooled a little. He was becoming more and more demanding, and frankly, she was tired of him. Things went badly. They played the recording, and she recognized it immediately. God, that sounded so cheesy. Why did I even think this was a good idea? She knew why. Even after everything, she still missed Bruce, and the thought of him with someone else drove her crazy. She was crying with shame, and Steven looked defiant. Her boss spoke. We got this from his lawyer this morning. He's threatening to sue and post it on Facebook, revealing who you and your lover are if we don't stop you. Tiffany, you're our best employee, and I've always been good to you. Before the divorce, you became unpredictable since then, but I chalked it up to an adjustment period. Listen carefully, Tiffany, if you continue this behavior, I will fire you. Right now, the market is too unstable to tolerate such negative publicity. What you do in your private life is your business, but when it can harm our business, it becomes our business. Look me in the eyes and promise that this will not happen again. Personally, I cannot reconcile the woman I knew all these years with that vixen on those recordings. If you need help, the company is ready to provide you with advice as much as you need, and at no cost to you. But whatever it takes, you need to get yourself in order. What do you think of our first part of the story? According to my impressions, these stories will definitely be favorites among the others, as there are many more plot lines thought out here. What are your impressions? Write in the comments. See you in the comments.